This video is only part of an unpaid, unbiased, in-depth review from an average rider's perspective, so check out the rest in the link below at thegoodride.com. If this video helps, please consider subscribing and buying through our links, or even better, become a member on YouTube or Patreon. You'll get exclusive access to video review shorts as we test gear, along with a lot of other perks. So thanks for watching, and I hope this review helps. Welcome to The Good Ride. I'm your Me Harmony snowboard gear profile guide, James Beastie, and this is the Altai. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. I hope I am. And next to it is the Rift APX, a boot I had a great time with, and the Kita. And then of course, my Burton Kendo, my baseliner, which I rode before I rode these. I got a little time on these on the GNU Gremlin and the Union Ultras and rode these in good spring conditions. And to give you a short summary, this is a pretty medium stiff boot with double BOA that has upper and lower separation and really wraps well around the ankle, has some articulation points. But the one deal breaker for me, and might be for you, is there's only a little bit of rubber in the sole. The rest is EVA foam. That's slippery and that wears down quickly. But if you can get past that, you have a pretty responsive boot at around $300. So it's a reasonable price point. Just wish it had rubber on the sole. Now, when it comes to sizing, I felt like this fit my size 9 US foot pretty well. And I'm a true size 9. And then I have a width of an E on the US Brannock scale. And this felt a little bit on the narrow side for that. I'd really have to heat mold this liner, and good thing it is heat moldable. I'd really have to put some time pressing this out on the sides and getting it to pack out to fit my E width perfectly. But as it stood day one, it was pretty comfortable and it didn't break me after a few runs, but I did want to get out of the boot and get into something else because it was starting to hurt. Now, when it comes to adjustability, you have upper and lower separation. And as you can see, as I lock the BOA and bring it down, it just locks in right here, and this is still loose. Then you tighten the upper and wrap that around, and that is the upper part. It gets a little more of your ankle, and the lower part is primarily about the top of your foot forward. I personally like that because having a wider foot, I like to keep it a little more loose here and have more support around the ankle and up along the top. The heel hold was pretty good, pretty tight around the back, so I think that's good for a lot of people with narrower ankles and heels. It's not super tight, so if you're like me, a little bit on the wider side, it's still okay with a good heat mold. And on and off, it's BOA. BOA's slow getting on because when it's out like this and you get in, you have to do a lot of spinning to really get it tight, and it takes a little while to dial it out getting it on with BOA, but you don't have lace flopping around everywhere like you do with my Burton Kendos and other traditional lace boots. You don't have speed lace flopping around. I would say speed lace is a little faster on and off because it's just an easy pull. You don't have to spend some time twisting. But when it's time to get out, this is the fastest. It just pops, and all you have is just the inner part here and a little Velcro on either side that holds really well. Now, when it comes to flex, it's pretty stiff for a boot of this price point. I think they say a 7 out of 10, and I'm feeling that, maybe even a little bit more. Once it breaks in, it'll be a little softer. But you compare that to a much more expensive boot, the Kita. This has a much stiffer flex. And if you compare it to the Rift APX, I'm flexing it from a different angle here. It feels about the same, a little stiffer. Response-wise, this was pretty responsive. Definitely not as responsive as the Kita, and about the same as the Rift APX, But I think in terms of support, all of these felt really supportive and good in uneven terrain, so I don't think you have to worry about that at all. But if you want the stiffest, you definitely have to go up a bit price-wise. Now, in terms of overall construction and flex retention, I do like that they put these articulation points throughout the boot, so it will retain its flex better than maybe something that just has nothing here, and a lot of boots just do that. But it's gonna be no Rift APX here with an articulating cuff that goes almost all the way back to the spine of the boot, kind of like my Burton Kendos, which last forever. They're not a very stiff flexing boot, but they don't lose their flex easily, and that's really cool. And I would say it might even hold its flex longer than the Kita, because that really doesn't have any true articulation points. You can see right here. So that's one good thing for it for sure. And overall, it's pretty good construction. Again, really bummed that they didn't put rubber on the bottom, and we'll get to that later. But everywhere else, it seems like a very well-made boot for this price point. Now, when it comes to shock absorption, there's a good amount of shock absorption here, and it feels like it's more on the shock absorption for a landing kind of feel versus dampening up the ride when you're going at higher speeds. But it's still more on the balance side between being shock absorbent and cush and being damp at higher speeds. I like this for dampness. The Kita, that just, you know, much better with the sole and just the construction that they're using for dampness. That's just better there. The Rift is a nice balance between both worlds. One thing, this feels pretty centered. It doesn't have an easy roll either way. And if you compare that to the Rift, you can see it has an easy inward roll and it's a little more stiff on the outside. Same with the Kita. It has an easier inward roll. It seems to like going this way a little bit better, and it's a little stiffer on the outside. So it's a little easier on your joints. It's not quite canted, but it just rolls inward and lines up better with how you stand on a snowboard. Now, when it comes to traction, there's no way around it. This just sucks when it comes to traction. It's really not good. I'm really bummed that they have all EVA foam from heel to just a little bit past the toe. So at least you have real rubber in the toe. So if you're hiking and you step in, you can actually have some traction. But I found that this was much more slippery than the other boots. Like the Kita has Vibram here, like a Vibram outsole. That's like the pinnacle of cold weather traction. And then this has just good rubber throughout the bottom. I wish they could have just charged a little bit more, charged 20 bucks more, and put some rubber along the bottom. Now, when it comes to the footprint, I felt like this was pretty reduced in terms of footprint. It's almost right there with my Burton Kendo, which is kind of the pinnacle of footprint reduction throughout the size line. There are some that are more reduced in some sizes and less reduced in others, but Burton's pretty consistent. And as you get into bigger sizes, it seems to be a little more reduced. This I've only tried in size 9, so I can't speak to the higher sizes. But in comparison to my Burton Kendo, it was pretty close. And I didn't even have to adjust my straps to use these on the same day as my Kendo. The insole's pretty basic, and so are all the insoles in most snowboard boots. So no faults here. You might want to look at an aftermarket insole. I personally like Footprint Insole technology. That's the one out of all the ones I've tested I like the best. The Game Changers are great, but go with what works for you. So overall, if this had more rubber in the sole, even just a patch here, or something somewhere, this would be a very recommendable boot. As it stands, everything else about this didn't bother me at all. I think it's a well-built boot that offers up a lot of cool features, has good adjustability, has decent flex retention, all that kind of stuff. So the one thing you're gonna have to get past is traction. So If you ride in conditions that are often firm to hard to icy, you might want a different boot because you could have problems in the lift line. Giving advice on YouTube is very difficult because I need a lot of info from you to actually help. So if you want real advice, fill out the Me Harmony profile in the link below so I can help you properly.